Hey,
Hello,
what's up,
welcome.
y'all? I'm Liv,
And I'm Amy.
and this
And this
is
is
Girls
Girls
Gone
Gone
Spooky.
Spooky.
Hell yeah. And this is our last episode of season 5,
Wow, I can't
which
believe
is
it.
crazy. Whoa, and I just looked at the time and it's 4:44
Ooh,
on May 4.
oh my god. May the fourth be with
Oh.
you.
I forgot.
Today's the day.
Today's the
Mm-hmm.
day, nerds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we have in our theme for the last like 3 episode series, um, in line with the hodgepodge kind of variety vibes, we have another within that lane for this week, and the theme is a bridge to the other side, which obviously can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. So I have 3 different interpretations. And yeah, should I just get into it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yes.
I'm so excited about this. I have some like creepies and some like sweet stuff. I'm so excited. Okay, I figured I would talk about a medium since that's like a very intuitive interpretation of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured I would talk specifically about Laura Lynn Jackson, who is like one of the most famous and well-known psychics in the world, psychic mediums. So just like a little bit of background, she was not always like fully embracing her path as a medium. She was actually a full-time high school English teacher for almost 20 years. And her husband initially worried that her sort of like owning her identity as a psychic medium could cost her the teaching job. But she was sort of like, I need to like be who I am. And so really the opposite happened. Her principal was super supportive and actually began getting readings from her, which is kind of interesting. And then eventually she gained popularity and sort of took it mainstream. But she was sort of unconsciously using her psychic gifts even as a child, which she sort of didn't realize until later in life. She could see people's auric fields or auras, and just assumed everyone could because that was her own experience. At age 11, she had a premonition of her grandfather's death, which really frightened her. And her mother reassured her, though, that the ability ran in the family for generations. So she's not the only psychic medium in her family. What's unique about Laura Lynn Jackson is she has been probably the most like studied psychic medium by actual scientists and psychologists of like probably anyone, at least in the Western world. So she was studied at the Windbridge Institute for Applied Research in Human Potential, which is in Arizona, where she passed an 8-step quintuple blind screening administered by scientists to become one of only a very small group of certified research mediums. She's also a certified psychic medium with the Forever Family Foundation since 2005, and they're also very stingy about certifying mediums. They have to have gone through true like scientific setting testing. And she actually serves on their medium advisory board for the Forever Family Foundation. For anyone who's unfamiliar, the Forever Family Foundation essentially does research on the afterlife and like our connection to the afterlife and all of that fun stuff.
What am I
Right?
doing in healthcare research?
So cool.
Should
Like,
be in
so cool.
woo woo research.
Woo woo research. Yeah.
It's my next field.
Yeah, it's just you're in your stepping stone era.
Yeah,
You're
that's
getting
true.
close. Palliative care is a good stepping stone
That is
to
true. Yeah,
afterlife research.
that is true.
Um, she is a New York Times bestselling author. She's written a bunch of books if you're interested in checking them out. The Light Between Us, I think, is probably the most famous of them. She also wrote Signs, The Secret Language of the Universe, and her most recent, I think, is Guided, The Secret Path to an Illuminated Life, all of which became New York Times bestsellers. She has a celebrity following now, so she's attracted a lot of following, especially among public figures, not just normies like Amy and I. She's been sought out by people like Chelsea Handler, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kim Kardashian, Jay Shetty, the meditative guide. So her like sort of core philosophy, we'll call it, she sees herself as primarily a teacher in that there's a quote from her. I see my role here as a teacher, and I happen to be a psychic medium. I think I'm here to remind people about their own abilities. And then it goes on to say she believes that everyone is capable of perceiving energy and identifying messages sent from the other side, and that her gifts are not unique to her. So I figured I would give one like wild example of a Laura Lynn Jackson situation. So this is probably the most remarkable documented account of hers. A self-described skeptic named Jason attended a group reading with his wife Carrie, mostly out of curiosity. 20 years earlier, so 20 years earlier, Carrie and Jason navigated a deeply painful pregnancy where Carrie was initially carrying quadruplets, so 4 of them, which involved some very heartbreaking decisions, and they ultimately had one surviving daughter named Maddie. During the group reading, Jackson pointed toward the couple and identified 2 points of light. Her term for the souls of unborn or very young babies who have passed, she calls them points of light. But then she goes on. She says, Maddie's younger brother, who's living, is the returned soul of the third light. So she knew there were 4, but one actually was already on Earth and the other 2 were on the other side, but with the parents still. Like, so emotional. And they had never disclosed to Jackson that they had any children at all. Both, of course, like broke into tears. They had never like posted about the pregnancy, or this was 20 years ago. People weren't like posting that stuff on Instagram. And then Jackson delivered a final message saying that it was time for them to let go of the pain from this difficult decision that they had to make, and sort of referenced this emotional wound around a pregnancy reduction choice that like really haunted them both. Jason, who again was a skeptic, wrote afterward that while he couldn't rule out prior research, the effort required to fake it seems even more fantastical than imagining perhaps there exists a universe greater than my mind's capabilities. So Laura Lynn Jackson, like some people are like, she's a fraud, they're all frauds, whatever, but like she's like as close to the real deal, like proving that someone's the real deal as anyone. So she's a cool one. Yeah. So, okay, so that's my little highlight on mediums. Now we're going to move on to my next interpretation of the theme, which is under the influence. So this includes a wide array of influential, I don't even know what we're going to, substances. So we'll start on the light end. So weed and other, we'll say like natural, often hallucinogenic or can be hallucinogenic drugs like shrooms, peyote, etc., tend to be associated with enhanced psychic ability. So these are tools that have been used by indigenous communities for eons, and it's sort of a known thing. And I figured I would share a story that actually a friend of mine in Toronto shared with me. He's like there with a shaman and a couple of friends and then some other strangers. So he goes into the experience with the ayahuasca, which, as an aside, I don't think I could do it knowing that you have to throw up at the end.
I know. It does not appeal to me.
No, it doesn't to me either.
Unless I like needed a spiritual journey, then I could probably get over it. But I don't feel the need for that right now.
I don't either. It's too much. No. So he goes into the experience and he like has a few kind of like flashes of like people from his past and maybe deceased people, but that wasn't really like the focus, at least in the story that he shared with me. And towards the end of the experience, they're all around a fire. And he sees like from between like 2 people across the way, this dog like come forward towards the fire and like padded around and stopped right in front of him and sat down. And it was his childhood dog. Okay, so keep in mind, he's there with friends, but not friends from childhood. He's friends with like, he's there with his like adult friends. So the experience ends, whatever, and they're all like debriefing the next morning. And his friend goes, "Who was that dog?" And he was like, "Wait, what do you mean?" And he was like, "That white dog that came and like sat beside you. Did you see it?" And he was like, "Yeah, I saw it. Like, describe it to me." And he describes his childhood dog like to a T. And it was literally like, it was this shared hallucination, which is like, how can that be for a dog this guy's never seen before?
I know.
Right.
Yeah.
And to experience it the same too, not just to see it, but to experience it padding around the fire and sitting beside this guy. Anyway.
Yeah, that's amazing.
So
it's a
cool.
Spirit guide.
100%.
Alebrije, I think that's what it's called.
So cute. Some people, of course, have like spooky experiences on weed and things like that. For the most part, they do tend to be more like spiritual than scary. At least like in the ones that I've read. Alcohol and hard drugs, however,
can be dark.
Yeah. The overwhelming consensus for like why that is that alcohol and hard drugs make you more susceptible, or maybe vulnerable is a better word, to paranormal entities, specifically evil ones, which makes sense, right? Because like your aura's dark, whatever. This seems to be due to the fact that it's not just a mood altering substance, but it's also often associated with abuse of the substance. So alcohol is something that's easy to drink too much of, or develop a reliance on it, or an addiction, or whatever it may be. So that is sort of the consensus, and there are a whole lot of stories to back that up. So we're going to start with a story from Eric Walk. And he says, this happened over a few years ago to myself while my wife was in our room. For context, I will try to describe this as best as possible, both what happened and what led up to the event. I've been a serious drinker since my very first drink. At 14, I had my first drink, and the feeling of being buzzed would outweigh the feeling of being alive and sober for the rest of my drinking days. I was adopted after being born, so I grew up not feeling a part of, is the way he describes it, but like feeling like he doesn't belong. So drinking would be the only thing in my life that really made any sense, if that makes sense. So anyway, I was incredibly obsessive over things and always into ghost stories and things of that nature, which turned into trying to contact spirits through Ouija boards, ghost hunts, watching gore videos while drunk. I was incredibly suicidal for really as long as I can remember. Fast forward to me being around 32, I have had an amazing woman who is still my wife. And at the time, she was about to leave because I could not stop drinking for the life of me. I had wanted to die for a long time. And the night she told me she thought she had to leave, something broke. I do not know how to explain the rest because I have never had any other quote unquote experiences or have seen anything or even felt anything remotely close to this. But I had my wife and she was about it. I had gotten sick the year before with an unknown stomach issue, probably due to stress. So I was just truly falling apart. This specific night, like I said, when something broke, we were in our apartment alone and she had just told me she felt like she had to leave. I start crying over the sink, and she said she never heard me cry like this, and a dark presence came out of me or lifted off of me into our room. She was in bed because this was late, probably midnight. So I join her in bed and I say, there is something evil in our room. And she replies to say, yeah, I know. I notice it too. This is not something I saw with my eyes, but I saw it in my mind. He doesn't know how else to describe it. A huge dark presence was above our bed looking down on us, a heavy, evil presence, one that I have known. It was almost like a friend or a person that I know well, that I've spent time with. I told my wife this, and she's talking me through it and also starts praying. And I'll remind you, I'm not spiritual in any way. I'm depressed and suicidal most of the time, not spiritual. My wife is very spiritual, though, and tried talking to me about this stuff, but I just never really got it or understood it. Once this dark presence had been there for a few minutes, what I can only describe as this great loving spirit washing over the room, and something in me opens up and I finally get it. Me and my wife had conversations after that for 24 hours straight about the Holy Spirit. And I really want to make this clear. I do not go to church or pray or read the Bible at all. So this was a real experience for me that is truly inexplicable. Since then, it's been crazy. I'm so happy that I've had that experience, and my life has gotten so much better. I wish I could say that that was my last drink that night. I sort of thought that it would be. I thought that's what spiritual experiences did. But I did eventually get sober, and I have been for the last year and a half, and I'm still happily married. And I have a son who's turning 2 in a few months. I'm posting this now to see if anyone else has had experiences like this. What are your thoughts, experiences, etc.? So, yeah. We're starting light, and we're going to ramp up here. Okay. So,
it's interesting.
Yeah. So, next story from a deleted user. They say, I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. And I'll say trigger warning for some like domestic violence here. Okay, I know this sounds crazy, but hear me out. My ex-husband was an alcoholic, and there was one time specifically in the beginning of his alcoholism that will truly haunt me for the rest of my life. He came through the door and closed it very quietly compared to the usual loud slam. I was in the living room with our then 2-year-old and baby, and he walked straight up the stairs with this blank expression on his face, staring straight ahead, not even acknowledging our existence. He got to the top of the stairs and started to walk into our bedroom. So I shouted, "Hey, baby, you okay?" because something just seemed wrong. He turned his head, looked over the balcony, and a creepy grin spread across his face. He said, "I'm at peace," and walked into our room still smiling. I asked my grandmother and dad to come sit with the kids for a moment while I went to check on him. I got upstairs and opened the door, and he was standing just staring into our closet. It was truly something straight out of a horror movie. I asked him what he was doing, and he repeated, "I'm at peace," and then said, "I don't love you anymore." I told him he was just drunk and that our marriage was fine, not knowing that he was going to become an abusive psycho later on. He was smiling this entire time and slowly walked over to the other side of the room. He grabbed an upholstery hammer and tried to hit me over the head with it, with this blank, crazed look in his eye. I grabbed it out of his hand before he could hit me and asked him what was wrong and why he was acting like that. No response. I kept trying to calm him down, but he tried to stab me in the neck with a broken coat hanger. All of a sudden, he snaps out of it and says, "Hide the bullets, please. I don't know what's wrong with me." I just stuttered, stunned, and asked, "What?" And then he turned back to look at me, and there was no color in his normally bright blue eyes. They were black. He looked straight into my eyes and said, "I don't need a gun to kill you, bitch," and wrapped his hands around my throat. Yeah. He was choking me, and I was starting to fade out, so I started saying Psalm 91 and told him to say it with me because honestly, I didn't know what else to do. And he did, and his grip slowly loosened. Once he let go, he laid down on the bed and asked me to get him some chips. He swears he has zero memory of what happened that day. Yeah.
You said her ex-husband, right?
Yes. Did they survive that? Yeah. They survived it for a while, though, because he became very abusive later on. But
that is terrifying.
Yeah, it's not great.
No.
Not great.
Because, the, like, flipping back and forth like that doesn't seem like just a psychological thing.
It's something like really weird, like a possession almost.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Weird.
Oh, yeah. So this next one was written in response to this story, but they included a story of their own. This is from Hoang Solo. They say the human mind is complex, though it still may be possible for a possession to happen. There is a thing with alcoholics going into psychosis. There might be more in his head to be diagnosed, and this may not be purely based on the alcohol. I had a similar story to yours. I used to see this girl who I swear had borderline personality disorder. It was a night in which we had yet another argument, and I ran home and just laid on my bed exhausted from the toxicity of it all and just wanting space. Of course, she calls nonstop, and I didn't answer for over an hour until I couldn't take it anymore and just answered. And she's crying, yada, 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 and I let her in. I found out she took some Xanax and drank a lot of alcohol. She always had this flat effect when she wasn't sober or is on the low end of what I think was a manic episode. And that night I was just worried for her and cuddled up on my bed just so I didn't have to worry about her driving drunk or, doing something to hurt herself. She then looked in my bathroom, and she had always said that there was a demon in there, even sober. And she screams to the bathroom, "Go away." I was in shock, as I've seen her manic phases before, but this one shook me to my core because I do believe in ghosts. And shortly after, she looked at me with that same flat expression, as I'm still in shock, and asks me to pray. And I replied, "Pray for what?" She then has this off-putting grin and responds, "For everything." Of course, I pray, terrified, and even as she's grasping my hand and gripping onto it, the grasp becomes very uncomfortable, and I even tried moving away, but she seemed to have this sort of unnatural strength all of a sudden. And he says in parentheses, note, I was almost twice her size and worked out very consistently back then. I should have had no problem pulling my hand out of hers. She looks me in the eye with this off glance and keeps saying, "What's wrong, baby? What's wrong? What's wrong?" I, honest to God, could not break away from her hand. I thought I was going to shit myself. She then comes in closer and starts repeating, "It's okay, baby. Everything's going to be fine," and throws me back on my bed, gets on top of me, and starts making out with me. I was so confused, but honestly, at the time, her level of emotion was always so unexpected that I was just sort of like jaded at this point. So I sort of felt like I just had to go with it to avoid it being something more explosive. But the scariest part is that we had been together for over 6 months, so I know how she kisses. But this time felt like kissing a stranger. I remember feeling like my soul was being sucked out of my body. It was so weird. She then grabbed my hand to move it to her butt and then pushed back afterwards with this kind of confused look and said, "What happened?"
Oh my God.
She had forgotten everything since arriving at my house.
There was a demon in the bathroom.
Yeah, I'll say.
Found.
And in her, god damn.
Oh my God, scary.
Okay, so last story on this topic. This is from Madison Rose or Rosette 1. So I read somewhere about a year or two ago that consuming a large amount of alcohol, being super drunk or blacked out, makes you more vulnerable to evil entities, and that sometimes when you're in a more vulnerable state, it gives those entities the opportunity to latch onto you or even control you. I have no idea what the title of the article was, but I honestly think I'm starting to believe it because of some incidents that have happened to me in the past couple years. Ever since I was little, I have always been interested in the paranormal. I got my first Ouija board when I was in middle school, and my friends and I used to play with it all the time in my room. Yes, my mom got me the Hasbro glow-in-the-dark Ouija board for Christmas when I was in the 5th grade. We would never say goodbye because for some reason we never picked up that rule. We just didn't know it. Then in middle school or high school, we just used to mess around in graveyards, go to places that were known to be haunted, and we even used to perform these ritual-like things from short stories from the book series 13. The short story is called The Magic. Basically, was when you do it correctly, you're supposed to hear the devil knocking on your door. And then she says in parentheses, "We didn't hear knocking, but as soon as we performed the magic, all 6 of my friends' fishes died." Yeah, just died. Nothing good. Then there was one called The Dare, where you visit a graveyard, read the story out loud, follow the instructions, which includes writing down certain letters corresponding to the grave you chose on a piece of paper, burning some letters, keeping the others, and then at the end, the remaining letters would spell something out. We had some very weird encounters in the graveyards whenever we would do the dare, including hearing children laughing, papers moving around with no breeze, words being spelled out that were not pleasant. If you want to Google the 13 series and read more on the short stories, I definitely recommend it because they are interesting and I honestly think that they worked. Some versions of the book sold take out these 2 short stories because they're believed to be sort of haunted. So if you're going to order the book, make sure it includes those 2 stories. Anyway, it went from playing with Ouija boards and doing these rituals to going to really haunted places and trying to stir up a ghost or 2. My 2 friends and I would always go to the high school Del Mar located in San Jose, which their football field is known to be haunted by 2 people who had died on the VTA tracks just behind the football field. I had always gotten weird feelings whenever visiting this place, but nothing too crazy ever happened to me personally. My friend Luis, on the other hand, he's a photographer and swears he's gotten pictures of those who haunt the Del Mar Bowl up on the bleachers. I've seen the pictures and they look pretty weird and real, but I guess you never know. Then what made me stop messing with all this paranormal stuff was Marsh Road, located in Milpitas. Also, I just have to say, this is like all kind of near where I live. So if you look up articles on it, it tells how a young girl from Milpitas High School was murdered by her boyfriend and brought to Marsh Road and left to rot underneath the bridge. Now her spirit supposedly haunts that road. We would visit this road and bring my friend Luis's camera and recording gear in hopes to get something caught on camera, which we did. One night at exactly midnight, we drove down this road. It's a very skinny road with barbed wire and hills on each side. We got to the bridge and decided to go under the bridge and all around it. The road ends right after the bridge to a private property. Then we decided to drive back, but as we were driving back, and by the way, you can see all of this on camera, Luis was sitting on the window almost outside of the car. We saw 2 people flagging us down on the side of the road. Keep in mind, this road is only like a mile or 2 long, very skinny, and like no way to like get off the road. And it's in the middle of nowhere. So when we rolled up to them, something wasn't right. Their eyes looked sort of illuminated and as if they were rolling back into their heads, and they had blood on their faces. When we stopped for a split second, you could hear them say, "Our friends need help. They're under the bridge." The bridge that we had just come from and hadn't seen trace of any other human down there. After that, we sped off as fast as we could, feeling really freaked out. Either these 2 people were ghosts or possessed people, or they were murderers and were trying to get us back to the bridge. Either way, after that night, I have been traumatized and refused to do anything even remotely related to the paranormal. And then they say, like, if you want to check out the video and see it for yourself, you can look up Marsh Road Milpitas on YouTube. They're the first video with like 16,000 views. It's titled The Haunting of Marsh Road Documentary, posted by Luis Beltran. And so she says, I'm the girl who's sitting in the driver's seat and screaming. So she says, okay, back to my original point of this post. So after years of messing around with the paranormal, I believe I might have some negative energy attached to me. I'm a big party person and tend to drink a lot when I go out or am at a party. I'm working on my drinking, though, and getting better, but that's a different story. Anyway, there have been a few incidents where I've gotten quite inebriated and have done things that aren't like me at all and felt almost as if I'd been possessed. One time I got so drunk and started to run in and out of my friend's house, waking up the whole family for hours. Or one time I blacked out and woke up from a nap, still blacked out, and started yelling and saying all these horrible things to my friends. I don't remember any of it, but she told me it quite literally sounded like I was possessed, like I was not myself. There are a couple of other questionable incidents. I'm just wondering, what do you guys think? Do you have any knowledge on alcohol in relation to the paranormal? Do you think I'm being taken over briefly while extremely intoxicated? I'm in the process of cleansing my mind and soul, and I'm highly debating talking to a professional or medium about these experiences. And then she also asks, like, does anyone else know about this 13 book? And like, have you done these things? Which I'm just like, those sound scary. Don't do those.
Yeah. No one should do those. Don't recommend it.
We shouldn't do those. I don't think we should do those. Yeah.
I've never heard of them, though.
Yeah, I hadn't either. And I kind of want to like look at it. I don't want to like get the book, but you know what I mean.
Do it. Yeah, no.
Ooh, I don't know.
That's scary.
Very scary. Okay, and then my very last theme here is fairy rings. Yay. A bit of a more like literal bridge to another dimension. So these are, for anyone who doesn't know what a fairy ring is, they're rings made up of a natural growth of mushroom or fungi, usually around where a tree once was. Basically, like the fungus grows beneath the ground, like in the center of what will be the circle, and then the fungi grow out into a circular shape just at the surface. So the main criticism of this, of course, is like it's a natural phenomenon. Like it's not like it's a circle because it's magic. Like it's you know, but at the same time, it being magic and this being a natural thing is not mutually exclusive, especially given that's absurd and nature is magic in a lot of different ways, and also fae are deeply connected to nature in their dimension and arguably also in ours, according to all lore about fae and fairies. And who's to say that it's like not they haven't created them, but maybe they're attracted to them. Key themes in a lot of the stories: time distortion and missing time. People describe losing hours of time. In one Reddit story, a child was missing for 6 hours after entering a fairy ring while camping, and experienced it like it was minutes. Encounters with entities. Some people report seeing shadowy figures, spider-like forms, like spider-like shadow figures, or black masses, sometimes with multicolored lights after sitting inside a ring. Warnings and bad luck. People say that like they have extreme bad luck, or you know, people that they love get hurt, or they get hurt, or they go through a really bad, like unexpected breakup shortly thereafter. And people say like there are negative consequences to messing with fae because they are known to be tricksters in some ways, and especially if you're not respectful and don't sort of like follow the rules. So some suggestions on that front. If you feel really compelled to enter a fairy ring, leave an offering, something like fruit, nuts, milk. Walk around the ring 9 times anti-clockwise or counterclockwise on a full moon, or wearing clothes inside out. So there's some things that you can do to sort of say like, I respect your vibe here and I don't mean any harm or disrespect. So yes, it is very interesting. So I have some quick stories. So the first one is I sat in the middle of a fairy ring, and this morning I saw a weird entity in my room. Hate that. Okay. Yeah. So they say a fairy ring has been growing in my backyard around my tree. And I know the lore behind fairy rings. So I said, you know what? Fuck it. Let's see if it's legit. So I sat in the ring of mushrooms for about 5 minutes before I got bored and got up. Nothing happened. I felt kind of silly. This morning, however, I wake up and realize there's a black kind of mass just chilling in my room on my ceiling with sort of multicolored lights, almost like a spider and its reflective eyes.
Good.
It was there for about 5 minutes, which just so happens to be coincidentally the same amount of time I sat in the fairy ring. I figured getting abducted by the fae is probably better than working a 40-hour work week, though. LOL. Anyone else have experiences like this? So
honestly, yes.
Sometimes
that's how I would think too.
Yeah. So of course people in the comments are like, why, yes, I have had an experience like that. So Not Marvel's Loki says, kind of similar. I sat down in one to meditate, and after 3 or 4 hours, my friends were running around trying to find me because I've been gone so long. I had told them specifically where I was, and my friends all looked there, but I wasn't there.
Whoa.
So like they literally left our plane while they were there.
Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. So the OP says, okay, that's really interesting. Do you think they were just like messing with you? And the Loki says, not messing with me. I have some vague memories from the experience, but honestly, it would probably require its own post. As far as I'm concerned, I was in their world for a brief time, maybe 4 or 5 hours of our world's time. I'd leave an offering of sweets and cakes and wine in or near the circle that I sat in. And if you want to, like, you know, avoid this shadow figure, essentially, like sticking around, with your intent being apologetic, if they feel that you've trespassed, with sort of like a side of curiosity, offer up these gifts. You should not feed them fear because they will take that and run with it. And as long as you don't have any like ill intent, or don't harm children or animals, like Fae are known to be sort of protectors of the vulnerable, you should be fine. But the highlight was sort of like, you know, they can sort of sense, like the way that this person described is like if a person has rot in them, they're not going to have a good experience. I don't think you have to be a bad person to have a bad experience with the fairy ring, but it was just sort of like you're kind of guaranteed, if you aren't a good person. So this one I really liked because this was a story from someone witchy, where someone was basically like, what do I do about a fairy circle? Like it popped up and I'm kind of like scared because I've read all this like lore. And this is from a witchcraft forum. And this deleted user, unfortunately, said this is a really difficult question. Most practitioners of magic, including advanced witches, will say absolutely do not work with the Fae. There are so many warnings that they can be malicious, play tricks on you, that you should never thank them. And you should continuously make offerings. And if you ever stop, they will basically like take your stuff, move your belongings, break your things, bring you bad luck. However, as a child, I loved the Fae, and I would look for them in every garden and every part of nature. The fairies would help me make potions and perfumes in the garden out of flowers, and it was just a totally pure and amazing experience. Nothing bad ever happened, and I still feel a huge pull to them today at age 30. I'd love to work with them now, and I'd love to connect with the Fae, but I haven't been able to find a single book or article that says it's a good idea. As much as I want to leave them some gifts, I honestly feel safer working with angels and demons. I honestly can't tell you if it's scaremongering that they're dangerous. Maybe they like children for their playfulness and purity. I wish I had an answer, and if you find out, please let me know. I can't see how any ethereal being would be mad at you for making a nice home for them in the garden and putting effort into creating something for them. But it's up to you. Because what they had said is like in the original post was also like never say thank you to them because it's sort of like encouraging them to fuck with you. So even if you're trying to be respectful, it's like not the way to go.
It's interesting. Yeah, I don't fully get that, I guess, but what do I know? I've been, though,
same,
engaging with fairies my whole life in this place that we call the Fairy Tale Magic House. That's like this stand of trees, and it has a little, it's not an actual fairy ring, but it has like a broken small tree that looks like it would be a house, kind of, at least to our childhood imaginations. That's what it looked like. And now still every time I go there, I commune with the fairies, as crazy as that sounds.
No.
Maybe because it's not an actual fairy ring, nothing applies.
But maybe
I always leave them flowers and stuff.
But they like that. They want offerings. It's more like if you think that they're messing with you, or if they leave you an offering and you're like, oh, maybe I should like cut this off, to be like, hey, like if you could cut it out, like, thanks, even if you're saying that, all they hear is like, thanks,
thanks.
you like it.
Yeah.
So you like it, so I'm going to keep doing it. Okay. So they're tricksters. Literal. So they kind of play with your words and stuff too.
Yeah.
Which is just so interesting. So that's fairy wings. Fairy wings.
Fairy
rings.
Fairy wings.
Fairy wings.
I love it.
Exactly. Okay, your turn. I'm nervous about yours.
Hopefully I didn't talk it up too much, but it's been like in the last 24 hours or however long I've been doing research about it. It's been really like
haunting you?
Yeah, kind of.
Great.
So, okay. And I hope that I do a decent job because this is like, I'm not a physicist. So just bear with me.
So
okay, you can correct
I'll be judging you.
You can guide me. So I'm going to do my best. I'm going to be talking about quantum immortality.
Okay.
And so what that is, you can start actually with Schrodinger's cat, which I think most people know what that is, but it's a thought experiment where you imagine a cat is sealed in a box with a random quantum trigger, which is called a qubit, that could kill it. And according to quantum rules, before you open the box, that whole system, so the box with the cat inside, is in a superposition, which means it's existing in multiple states at once. So the cat, in that case, is both alive and dead at the same time, at least mathematically. Which, that in itself is like, what are we even talking about? But
time's a construct, Amy.
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. But apparently that theory was almost meant to sound absurd. Like he wasn't saying it to be philosophical. It was to show how strange quantum theory is if you try to
when it's applied.
Yes. So now enter the many worlds interpretation.
Okay.
Which offers a different take.
That just gave me chills. Like, you haven't even said what it is, and I'm like weirded out.
I know. It's strange, but we've talked about stuff like this before. So the many worlds interpretation says that the cat is not both alive and dead. Instead, reality splits into two branches. So in one universe, I guess, the cat is alive, and in another, the cat is dead. So the cat is both alive and dead, but in two different versions of reality. So that, you just have to believe or be willing to believe in like parallel universes, basically.
But then doesn't that imply, maybe you're going to say this, but there would be like infinite realities?
Yes.
Many for the most mundane things.
Yes. I don't have the exact terminology, but it's like anything that has a non-zero probability of happening would exist
in its own reality.
One of these, branches. So,
whoa. Okay. I have questions, but I'm going to wait.
Okay. So, we'll get into what quantum immortality is. But first, into this scenario, add an observer. So, yourself, basically. Imagine you're the one opening the box. And so, in one branch, you see the cat is alive. But in another branch, you see the cat is dead. So now,
I don't like that one.
I don't either.
No, but dead kitties.
No, especially, no, never.
No.
So, but now there are two versions of you that have each experienced different outcome.
Oh.
So,
traumatized live, happy live.
Exactly. Yes. So now quantum immortality makes that more personal. So replace the cat with yourself in a life or death situation.
Okay.
In one branch of this life or death situation, you die. And in another, you survive. And so the key claim of quantum immortality is that there are all these possible realities existing, and maybe you do die in some, those are just cut off, but
Yeah.
you continue to like split and
And live
exist
forever, essentially.
basically. But that's one of the reasons why people like totally discredit this
Yeah.
possibility. Um, but yeah, basically, quantum immortality, you're jumping from, not jumping, that's the wrong word, because you're not having your same consciousness in every situation, but you like,
But it's you. A version of
yeah,
you lives
it's a
on.
version of you jumping to a different timeline, basically, every
Yeah.
time you face
And
a
you would
life
get,
or
your
death.
timelines would get kind of like whittled down and then they'd expand again. And
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
so is it only life or death situations?
Um, for yes, for quantum immortality,
Okay.
yes. However, I think with this many worlds thing, it's like every small decision that you make
Yeah.
branches into a different version of you. So, yeah.
Interesting. And then that was my
But
other question is like so many well, two things. One, so many choices we make are like subconscious. So like
mhm.
do those count? Like me choosing the words that I'm picking to speak right now. Because that would be like infinite
Yeah,
possibilities. Or is
it's
it
true.
like the things that I'm consciously like, I could do this or I could do that. Okay, I'm gonna do that.
Yeah. I would guess more the conscious decisions,
Yeah.
because the whole like every article that I read about this, it was about your conscience, not about your
Mm.
like, yeah, subconscious decisions. So, yeah. But immediately I was like, so does that mean that our consciousness is immortal? And it's not actually, because you have all these versions of yourself, but ultimately I think we're all aging at the same,
That's what I was
all those
thinking.
versions. Yeah. So it becomes more and more improbable that you survive all of these life and death
Mm-hmm.
experiences you're facing. And
Right.
also, no one is immune to dying from old age.
Old age. Yeah.
So eventually, some version of your consciousness is going to end up in a decrepit old body that
Right.
is on its last legs. So, yeah. But yeah. So some like, I don't know if anyone has actually done this. I think I saw it on Reddit that people have. So, trigger warning for quantum suicide. People
Oh
are
no.
so like either curious or just genuinely believe in this
Convinced.
possibility, and they commit suicide to try and find out, I guess, like believing that they will jump to some other reality. Um,
Whoa.
and yeah, I hope that I'm explaining this correctly,
No,
but
I mean, it makes sense. You're explaining it well. I can't say if it's correct, but
it's
I'm
my
following.
understanding. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, basically quantum immortality, how it relates to Schrodinger's cat is that you are the cat and
Yeah.
you have these outcomes happen to you, and there's a million possible things. So yeah, it's, I think I was also getting mind boggled by the idea, like I was trying to visualize, is there this big brain of like my consciousness, but then
Hmm.
it's splitting off into all these different things based on my choices. And like, imagine if you faced one of those other, like you jumped a timeline
Like the
and faced
Spider-Man
yourself. Yeah.
meme.
It's like, would you really recognize yourself? How different
Mm.
are we based on all the decisions that we've made? Like, if I
Mm.
never went to college and I never got this job and I never met you and I never
Yeah.
met Dave, like,
Yeah.
would I be a totally unrecognizable version of myself? It's weird.
Yes and no. Like, to you as you are today, you would probably be like, oh, well, that version is like really depressing and sad. But that version might also would have their own life.
Yeah.
That would be like, I don't want that. I want this.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But I feel like I get what you mean about like all the different consciousnesses, kind of like you're sort of imagining them as like parallel streams. But I would argue that, at least like from what I've read about not quantum immortality, but like quantum physics and sort of like the spiritual side of that, like what we're talking about now, is that you couldn't ever encounter that version of you. Like it's not like this, it's like this. Like it's together, like it's happening right now on top of us, essentially.
Yeah.
Which I don't know which is creepier.
Yeah, and that's the way that I was presenting it, I think, or the way that you just presented it, is one of the ways that people are like, no, this could never be real, because we don't know how consciousness works, and like the odds that it's all on a parallel track like that is pretty unlikely. So,
but then who's to say that like we're not all, it's all stacked on top of each other, but you could jump in the same way? Like what difference does it make?
Right.
I don't know. I don't want to test it, but
no,
it's an interesting concept.
But yeah, it's an untestable theory. So we just have to like think about it in a spiral forever. But
I feel better about this than I did about simulation theory.
Yeah.
That one, that messed us up for a little bit.
Yeah, I really don't like thinking about that at all.
Me neither.
And yeah, but for the purposes of what I'm going to talk about now, we have to pretend that this could be a real possibility.
Okay.
And actually, pretend is not even the right word, because these people experienced dying in one version and jumping into another.
So. Oh, that just gave me full body chills.
Isn't that crazy?
Hit me. Lay it on me.
There are so many of these stories. I guess one thing that it could get confused with, or I don't know the right word, but a glitch in the matrix could sometimes kind of be construed this way. But anyway, this is from Humble Acanthicita 28.
Hey.
And they have had 2 quantum immortality experiences. They wrote, I have for sure died twice.
Twice? Oh my God.
Of the 2, I'm very confident in the first one happened in about 1998 and the other in 2018 or so. In the first instance, my best friend and I were driving gravel back roads in the middle of the night, 40 miles between towns in rural South Dakota. I was admittedly going far too fast, and we came over a small rise, and there was a T in the road where you could turn left or right, but straight forward was a driveway for a farmhouse. The driveway went for about a half block or so and then transitioned into a cornfield. I remember saying, "Oh fuck," and starting to slow down as we started flying through the very tall corn. It was late summer and the stalks were basically full grown. The sound as my car plowed over the corn stalks and into the field sounded like the most vicious hailstorm ever. The experience was completely overwhelming to the senses. The sights and sounds of flying headlong at high speeds into a fully grown, densely planted cornfield cannot be overstated. This is where things get weird. The next thing I remember was sitting at a stop sign where we would turn onto the main highway in the area. It was nearly completely silent, with with only the light hum of the engine creating any sound. This was at least several miles away from the field we had just flown into. My blinker was on to the left, and the car was sitting still with my foot on the brake. The black of motion and dead silence was, for reasons unknown, absolutely overwhelming. I felt extremely disoriented and discombobulated, and was honestly not certain how I had come to this point, and was even concerned that perhaps I had blacked out or something. I just was not certain how we had arrived where we were currently sitting. At this point, I did not remember flying through that intersection or crashing through the cornfield. That memory was gone, either blocked or unremembered. I looked over at my friend and said, "What the fuck?" He had a dumbfounded look on his face as well and shrugged his shoulders, and after a moment said, "I think we go left." I actually got out of the car and found the North Star to make sure we would be turning the correct direction onto the highway. I also surveyed the situation, grasping for some semblance of understanding.
So they didn't remember what happened, but they knew something. They didn't know how they got there.
Yeah, it was like a
Okay.
Twilight Zone situation. Like suddenly I'm here. I don't remember how we got here.
Yeah.
Okay. We were surprisingly close to the town I lived in at the time. In short order, we made it to my apartment and both crashed as it was 4 a.m. and we had had a very long day. I was dead sober for this entire experience, but I did not feel right and I knew something was amiss. We got up the next day about mid-morning and got back in my car to drive to my friend's town where he was attending college, which was going to be about a 5-hour drive. We needed gas, and I stopped at a station to fill up and get other miscellaneous supplies. My car was, I was driving at the time was old enough to be losing a bit of oil. Sorry, there's some typos. So I almost always check the oil. Again, at this moment, my memories of the cornfield and all that were completely gone. I popped the hood and went around to the front of the car to get to the engine. I lifted the hood and glanced down. I was baffled. The engine compartment was almost completely full of corn stalks. It's bizarre. They say my knees went weak and I started to feel like I was spinning. Once again, I very loudly proclaimed, "What the fuck?" and called to my friend so he would come around to the front of the car. The very instant I saw the corn stalks in the engine compartment, the entire thing came back to me. I don't remember the point of death, but I remember all the other details, including being very confused sitting at the stop sign by the highway and the contrast between flying through the cornfield and sitting still at the stop sign. My friend said to me, "Do you remember?" I said,
Oh,
"Yeah."
fuck that. Fuck that. Fuck that.
Yeah. We talked it over multiple times during our long drive, and we had the exact same memory. His
Oh my God,
memory
I'm
also.
covered in goosebumps.
I have like painful chills.
Yeah,
Kind of.
same. Yeah, they're
It's
hard.
Yeah. So, and yeah, their memory it returned to both of them at the same time as soon as they saw the corn in the car as well. A couple months later, I tried to drive the same back roads that we had been driving to find that intersection and the farmhouse and the driveway and the cornfield. There were a couple of very unique, specific details to the location where the accident happened that should have made it easy to recognize and find. But I was never able to locate a spot like this on any of the roads anywhere around where we would have been driving. Microsoft has also just released their satellite imagery, and I scoured everywhere between those two cities, and I have never been able to find the location where we had our accident. I honestly don't think it exists on this timeline. Yeah, I know. And they had a second one. I mean, it's a similar situation, but they think that they were struck by lightning. And what was interesting about that one is that they were like in the same spot. They woke up again, kind of disoriented, but that time they had severe deja vu was what made them think like I've been in this situation before and it didn't go well before. It was, yeah. So that could be different. This cornfield one is like
really compelling and very freaky.
Yes.
And the friend experiencing it too is,
yeah, it's bizarre.
Oh, God.
But yeah, there was one comment because I had the same thought, and they wrote, "Love the way this is written. One question you wrote, I have never ever been able to find this location. I honestly don't think it exists, blah, blah. Wondering why there would be corn stalks under your car hood if the accident happened in a different timeline." And they responded, "I have an answer to this. The very brief version is that it isn't jumping from one timeline to another as much as it is the two timelines collapsing into one." Yeah. And this also causes the Mandela effect. Different parts of each timeline are merged together to create the new timeline. So, for example, the corn from the death timeline was merged into the new timeline. I was still alive in the second timeline, and so my existence merged into the new timeline from the reality where I was alive.
Yeah.
So,
well, that kind of goes back to like what you were talking about earlier. Like, would you hypothetically recognize yourself in another timeline? But what's interesting is she lands a few miles from where she was before in the car with the same friend. So is there also some sort of like, I don't want to say like godly determinism, but is there some determinism in how we live and the choices that we make, who we meet, things like that, like the big stroke things that change our lives?
Yeah.
Maybe those are sort of, I don't know that destined is the right word, but you're strongly pushed in those directions.
Yes, it seems like it. That's a good point. Yeah.
That also is like really freaky because what are the ramifications of that? Like if a timeline collapses where a parent has died, but your parent's alive in the other one, like what determines which detail survives in the new merged timeline?
Yeah. I don't, yeah, there's no way to explain.
Yeah.
And it seems like it would be random, but is anything really random?
Yeah. Especially in this, it doesn't seem like it.
Yeah. No. But yeah, I have a couple more.
Yeah.
That I hope you'll listen to.
I'm so compelled.
Okay. Because this was a comment on that post I just read, and this is from Hysterical Mushroom. And they say, okay, so when I was about 10 years old, I lived in a small town located in northeast Kansas, and I had a bunch of family in a city in Nebraska. We were regulars at a church in the city, so we traveled between them at least twice a week. We were clearing out a bunch of stuff from our basement and didn't have a truck, so we borrowed my family friend's truck with an extended cab. We had the bed full of boxes and stacked some boxes in the rear seat area of the cab all the way up to the ceiling, and we're taking it to the city in Nebraska to a Goodwill. It was my mom driving, obviously, me in the passenger seat, and our dog on my lap. We were heading north on the route we always take, about to cross the Kansas-Nebraska border, when we started approaching a 2-lane bridge that has no shoulder. Approaching the opposite direction, there was a car coming with an 18-wheeler following behind it. As we and the car coming the opposite direction entered the bridge, the 18-wheeler started to pass the car. Why? I don't know. I remember my mom slamming on the brakes and turning the steering wheel to the right off the bridge. All of the boxes tumbled on top of us, my dog flew off my lap, hit the dash, and I saw the grill of the 18-wheeler through the windshield, so close that it was all I could see, and then black. Next thing I know, we were on the other side of the bridge, back on the road, as if nothing had happened. I was hysterical and crying. My mom started to say prayers out loud, crying. The boxes were back to where they were before breaking, and my dog was sitting on my lap. I begged my mom to go back and go home, but she refused and just kept driving. She's probably in shock.
Yeah.
there was a small truck that had been following us this entire time, and he wouldn't pass us until we got to a small town between the city and my hometown because it turned to 4 lanes. When he slowly passed us, I remember this crazy stare he gave us as if he just saw something he couldn't explain. My mom and I have the exact same memories. She also blacked out and doesn't remember anything that happened in that time frame other than what she described. The other thing that helped solidify the occurrence was the fact that the bridge had our tire marks leading off the right side of the bridge on it for months afterwards. We saw them every time we drove over it, at least twice a week. So, what the heck happened to them? I don't know.
And like that, it's almost like everyone in your vicinity has to go with you because you can't leave behind.
Yeah.
Like
evidence.
Witnesses. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much. I know. It's crazy.
There is so much about our world that we just do not fucking understand.
Yeah, and we won't know until we die.
Yeah.
And I hope we get to know at that point.
I think we do.
I think so too.
I think we do.
Yeah.
I think it may not be knowing in the way that we understand that now, but I think it's like there will be like right.
Yeah.
Or like an I remember, I think happens a lot too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because people experience that in near death experiences too. Yes. Okay, give me more. I want more.
Okay. Okay. I just have two. Okay, 2 more. So this is from Borchert 97.
Borchert.
This one's a little different.
Okay.
But it's interesting. So they say, I'm fairly certain I OD'd and died. It was 4 years ago or so, but it was still by far the weirdest occurrence of my life. I live in a state with legal recreational marijuana, but my friends, who I think are fucking stupid for it, still buy drugs off the street from dealers.
God.
I don't know if it's for the rush of it or whatever. So anyway, I was smoking with them what I thought was normal THC, but I don't think it was. I've smoked before, but this was far different from any high. You know when you play a video game and it gets very laggy, the frames become choppy and separated? Life became like that. I was moving and looking around, but there were frames of being blacked out in the middle. In a panic, I tried to go home. My thought process was to get to my car, try to hold myself together for the mile or so to get back home. Bad idea. First of all, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that.
Yeah, and then black out in my own bed. But I never even got both of my shoes on. I got one shoe on and blacked out. But the strangest part was what happened later. This was no ordinary blackout. I remember screaming like I was in pain, and the sensation I felt was that of falling down an endless flight of spiral stairs into darkness. I thought that what I was experiencing was my death. This continued for a few minutes in real time, but it felt like an eternity. By this point, my friends were around me debating if they should call 911.
Yes. The answer is yes.
Yes, always. By the time I woke up, I was fairly certain I was in a different universe. My car was still where it was. I still had one shoe on, but something was really off about my friends. They looked and sounded like my friends, but they didn't feel like it. They were like alternate versions of my friends. I hate that so much for some reason.
that makes my stomach hurt.
Yeah. Like, imagine looking at me.
No, I don't want to.
I just hate it. Yeah, no.
I'm okay. Pass.
Yeah, okay. So, yeah. But like I said, the sensation I describe as dying only lasted for maybe 5 to 10 minutes in real time of me being on the floor, absolutely freaking out. But in my head, it felt like lifetimes had passed by. My friend said that what happened looked like a really bad DMT trip, not something that should happen from simple marijuana. I had my Apple Watch on and I checked it the next morning to see what it recorded for that period of time, and what I saw was insane. My heart rate went from periods of going incredibly fast, nearly 200 BPM, to extremely dangerously slow, as low as 15 to 20 BPM or so.
What?
So, yeah, I don't know. He said either I had the worst trip imaginable or I OD'd and died and respawned in an alternate reality. The latter is more interesting to ponder. And it definitely is more interesting to ponder, but it's scary.
Well, and also, did his friends ever feel right again?
No one ever asked that. I wish someone had. Maybe I should comment.
Yeah,
it's from like 4 years ago. But yeah, scary. Then this last one is very short, and it was just a comment that said it's from Nilla Soup, and they wrote, actually did completely flatline while giving birth and was revived in 2019. The kid's dad and I have talked a lot about how weirdly different everything has been since we came out of the hospital. Even when we immediately came out after being in there for about 5 days, they had a ton of construction almost finished outside the hospital that was not there when we went in. Everyone we knew has been totally different since then, too, is what they wrote, and no one commented to say, what are you talking about? So maybe I'll do that. But
yeah, what the hell? I'm not done with this topic.
No, I know. And there's so many. Like I was looking on Instagram and Reddit. It's
I see why this has like ensnared you.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I don't know.
Honestly, what a great way to end the season.
I know. On a thinker.
We leave you with that, spooky babies. Yeah. Wow, okay. Well, that's a wrap on season 5. Wow. We love you guys so much and so appreciate listening to us yap for literally 5 years. Like that's insane to me.
That is crazy.
So much content.
I
know. Some well planned, some not so well planned, some spooky, some sweet, a little bit of everything. So we'll be back. Maybe. Who knows? Quantum timelines or whatever.
And who knows if it'll be us or a different version,
or will we be a little different? You never know. We love you guys, and until next time, stay spooky.
Stay spooky. Bye.
Bye.